In our world today, there's too much waste and not enough availability. And according to the Recycle Track Systems, quote, the amount of food wasted in America has an approximate value of nearly $218 billion, which is the equivalent to 130 billion meals. And Americans waste about 60 million tons of food every year, end quote. This is around 30 to 40% of the US food supply. And this is a huge issue that has been acknowledged, but it's not been effectively addressed. If this amount of waste was just decreased by around 10%, experts believe that world hunger would be closer to being solved. And it brings up a good point that if the waste were to decreased, like what would we do with that excess food? Well, that's just another problem we would have to solve. But the distribution and availability of that food would have to be more available to everyone worldwide, so that excess food wouldn't truly be excess if it were distributed to those in need.
One of the major causes of world hunger is how inefficiently we produce, distribute, and forecast food demand. Shockingly, nearly one-third of all food produced by weight globally is wasted, leaving millions hungry. This is where tools like demand forecasting come in. By accurately predicting where and when food will be needed, we can reduce overproduction in some areas and shortages in others. For example, using historical consumption data, we can forecast future needs for specific regions or seasons, avoiding waste and improving allocation. Multiple regression models help make these forecasts smarter. Instead of relying on just one factor like past demand, we can include weather patterns, economic conditions, population growth, and even local events to create more precise predictions. Finally, we can measure the accuracy of these forecasts using mean absolute percentage error, or MAPE. Lower MAPE means higher accuracy, which helps decision makers adjust strategies quickly and efficiently. By applying these tools on a global scale, especially in high waste supply chains, we can better match food supply with real time demand. And although it won't completely solve world hunger, it's a powerful way to make smarter decisions and take a big step toward reducing hunger worldwide.
Hunger is still a daily reality for over 733 million people, but often food is available. It just isn't getting to the right places at the right time. A big part of the problem is that we don't always know where food will be needed most or how much will be needed until it's too late. That's why new tools that use real time data and predictive models are so important to develop. And a recent study published by Nature shows how these tools can forecast short term food needs in vulnerable regions by analyzing things like market prices, weather, and population changes. One of the most promising methods in the study is called reservoir computing. And while that might sound technical, what it actually means is that it is a type of machine learning that's good at spotting patterns over time, even with messy or limited data. You can think of it like tossing a bunch of inputs into a flexible pool of calculations, where the system watches how things ripple and change. Those ripples then help it learn how to predict future events, so that it can predict where food demand will rise. But to simplify, what makes it especially useful is that it's fast, efficient, and works well even in places where detailed data is hard to collect. This kind of early warning system gives aid groups a chance to prepare so that they can get the right amount of food to the right place before shortages begin.
Machine learning models like time series prediction, multiple regression, and neural networks can outperform traditional models, capturing complex patterns in demand. This leads to less overproduction and less underproduction, which reduces food waste and ensures supply meets demand more efficiently. With accurate forecasts, resources like labor, transport, and storage can be better allocated. This helps balance supply and demand globally, directing food to where it's needed most. Machine learning systems can be scaled globally, applied to various markets and regions with local data. They can also adapt to seasonal patterns, natural disasters, and market shifts faster than traditional systems. Machine learning models require large volumes of clean, reliable data. In many developing regions, this data may be incomplete, inconsistent, or unavailable. Building and deploying advanced machine learning systems requires investment in technological infrastructure, skilled personnel, and training. All of this may not be feasible for underfunded regions. Lastly, forecasting can optimize existing systems in the short run, but it doesn't directly address long-term root causes of hunger like poverty, conflict, or inequality.
These are just some personal experiences that I've had with not just food and waste, but also with people. And like growing up, my parents would never let me waste any food. My parents would always tell me that like I need to finish the food that's on my plate, or I need to wrap it up and save it for leftovers. And my mom would always tell me that she works with too many people who would be willing to do anything to get the amount of food that I would be wasting for their entire daily dose of food. Because she worked in Head Start and worked with a lot of families in the inner city of Erie, and there's a lot of people that would do anything to have that kind of food. And it became a family tradition of ours, not only to take the food that we need and just never waste any food that we take. I've also helped volunteer with my mom to help families in need, and I've seen firsthand how little food they have available. And sometimes I just take that for granted, because sometimes we walk into a house and we open the cupboards and there's one can of like a soup that really doesn't have much nutrition in it, and their fridge basically empty and very little of anything. And increasing the availability of food and not wasting food can help make more food available for people like them.